bunch. But first, let me tell you about the material properties of wood.
So we're going to talk to you guys about drumsticks, materials they're made out of, how they're made, and physical properties that they need to have to function properly. For example, what we have up here is materials. For one thing, they need to match. Each drumstick needs to be made out of the same wood, be it hickory, oak, anything of that nature. Weight, each stick needs to have a similar weight so that they don't feel very weird in one hand versus another. We also have frequency, which will determine how they sound. One stick versus another needs to make the same sound when it hits the same object. They need to be consistent. And color, because we just want it to look good aesthetically.
Of course, they need to be a pair. For conventional use, drummers want sticks to be durable so that they can last through shows, comfortable so that they enjoy holding them, using them, and they need to sound good so they can make a good song. Let's take a look at some of these physical properties in action at Drumsticks.
Okay, so the first thing I want to mention here is the materials. Over here we have a actual paired set of drumsticks. These are made out of hickory. And if you look over here, these are all hickory as well. They're just well used. But over here, we have the most obvious change. That is a plastic stick, which you could not pair with any of these for any sort of consistency across those. The weight is also really important. These two weigh the same, but even this stick right here, which is manufactured by Vic Firth and is the same size, also made out of hickory, actually feels a little bit different. You can't tell, but I can tell. The color is also important in pairing these sticks together. As you can see over here, couldn't pair these together just because they don't look the same, unless that's something you're into. But for manufacturing purposes, you want them to look as close as possible to one another.
Like we said, drumsticks need to be durable for playing. Oh, look, it didn't break. It's good. After time, drumsticks will break. Say a few shows, they eventually get to like this, then you gotta get new sticks. But they've lasted long enough, they're worth buying. Some drumsticks aren't meant for playing. This one was clearly a writing utensil. This one is not durable. The tip flew off very fast. This stick was meant to light up. Eventually, the battery died. It's clear so that you can see the light when you hit it. But I don't feel that this is meant for playing at all. Like we said, it needs to sound good.
Clear difference. And now we'll take you through the process of how they're made.
We're making drumsticks, so we're gonna need some wood. Looks like Dan's found us a nice specimen. We agree. The first step is to harvest the wood and collect wood logs. The logs will then be taken to the plant for further processing. The next step is to dry the wood. To the kiln! At the kiln, wood logs are stacked to be dried using heaters and fans. We will now reenact the entire process of making drumsticks. Many companies dry their wood to an industry standard of 6 to 8% moisture content, similar to furniture. Vic Firth is one of these drumstick companies. Other companies, such as Rich Sticks, dries their wood to 10 to 12%, believing that to be the optimal drumstick moisture. The next step of the process is to cut, shape, and sand the wood into the drumstick shape. There are many aspects to consider for this step, such as tip shape and taper length, the length along which the stick narrows. Typical stick dimensions are 15 to 17 inches in length, or half an inch to 3/4 inch in diameter. Then a thin film of lacquer is applied to the stick, as you see here, for smooth grip. Some companies use beeswax. The next step is to weigh the sticks and sort them by similar weight. We're coming along. But weight isn't everything. Just because two sticks weigh the same doesn't mean their pitch is the same. So, sticks of the same weight must be sorted by frequency to a nice precise range, measured by hertz. Finally, the sticks must be sorted by color, just so they can be sold in pairs. And that's how Vic Firth makes their trademark perfect pair. Now we will discuss the material in further scientific depth.
There are many kinds of drumsticks and materials that drumsticks can be made of. But today, we are focused on the classic wood drumstick. And where does wood come from? That's right, trees. Here we have a cross-section of a tree. The different colored rings or growth rings represent different times of the year. During the spring and summer, the wood grows faster and is more porous with large vessels that transport nutrients. This is known as early wood, not to be confused with morning wood. As the year progresses, growth slows and the wood becomes denser. This is the late wood. Drumsticks are made of hickory, a wood exclusive to North America. For making drumsticks, only the sapwood is used. This is the 3 to 5 inch ring of wood that is actively growing. Sapwood has a higher moisture content, which makes it easier to work with because of that. The walls of wood sills are predominantly made by rigid 8 to 10,000 unit long chains of D-glucose. This is known as cellulose. As you can see on the lower half of the image, the D-glucose chains are covalently bonded, and separate chains are held together through hydrogen bonding. This allows the wood to form long fibers, and when densely packed together, becomes the wood that we have grown to know and love. Drumsticks are made with the grain of the wood. This allows the drumstick to take advantage of the strong covalent bonds of the cellulose. This means drumsticks are bad for stabbing, but good for striking. When examining drumsticks broken from use, it is evident that the wood is stronger across the grain. Drumsticks typically split down the grain.
Now let's talk about the bleaching and drying of wood after it's cut. Both of these two processes are diffusions. Here is a wood board, and this is the surface. In the bleaching process, wood bleach diffuses from the surface into the wood. In the drying process, the moisture content diffuses out of the surface. Both processes are unsteady state diffusion, which can be estimated by error function. Let's now talk more about the drying process. Warm air flows into the oven chamber from top, over the surfaces of each piece of wood, and finally out of the chamber from the bottom. The moisture content of the wood will finally reach equilibrium with the relative humidity of the surroundings at controlled temperature. Now we move on to the relationship of moisture content, diffusion coefficient, and drying time. The diffusion coefficient decreases as the moisture content decreases. The relationship can be linear or exponential, depending on the type of wood and the board thickness. Here is a graph of moisture content versus drying time. It normally takes 4 to 5 days to finish a batch of drying process. 6 to 8% moisture is the industrial drying standard. However, 10 to 12% is optimal for drumsticks. It grants the sticks a heavier feel and is less likely to break or chip.
This concludes our presentation of the material properties of hickory wood and the making of drumsticks. Thank you for watching.
Oh, I can't fill.